explaining and discussing composition. This, of course, is not all of the possibilities with composition. These are the more common layouts in composition that you'll see. These types of composition that I show you will keep you busy with composition for several years. So I'll show you the more common ones and the ones that tend to work quite well. The first one we'll look at is called the S composition. As you can see, this river bank in this snow forms the letter S. It's also called a Z, or it's also called a compound curve composition. Typically the S leads to the point of interest in the painting or drawing. As you can see here, the S leads to the tree on the right bank that's leaning to the left, and then the tree that's leaning leads up to the sky where your eye can escape out of the composition. So this one is fairly effective and quite common. You'll see this composition in paintings of roads, rivers, but sometimes still lifes can have an S composition. Interior scenes can have S compositions. The next type of composition is called a cross. Typically you see this with boats on the ocean or trees in a forest where the shape of a cross is used to draw the eye to a point of interest. Obviously, where the vertical and the horizontal line meet is where the point of interest should be. The next type of composition is the diagonal line. Typically this composition starts in the upper left of the canvas and moves to the lower right. It's a fairly pleasant composition, and one of the ways to help balance this composition is to have lines that are perpendicular to the sloping line. In other words, the legs on the cat that are opposing the line of the tree, and that helps soften the dramatic angle of the line. The next compositional element is the circle. The circle is a fairly common compositional element. As you can see in this photograph, it's designed for us, the circle, but many times clouds will be used to incorporate a circle. Trees and clouds together can be used to incorporate a circle. And of course the idea is that your eye stays within the edge of the canvas and moves around the image over and over again and stays within the confines of the frame. The next type of composition is the L. The L is usually in the shape of an L, of course, with a strong vertical element usually placed on the left or right of the image. In this case it's on the right side, and with the example that I'm drawing, I'm making the smoke much bigger than in the photograph. So if I was painting this image, I would make this smoke much bigger, and of course you can see that it forms a backwards L. This also works with trees in a landscape. You can have a strong vertical element tied to a fairly strong horizontal element, and it creates this L composition. The next type of composition is the radiating line. This type of composition leads your eye into a specific point in the image. Typically it would be something like this, where all of these lines converge to a specific point in the picture. And of course in this photograph that I have, you can see this dome in Venice is serving as the center of interest. And you can also do this in this landscape. All roads lead to the center of interest. Typically you would put the center of interest not in the center of the painting, but to the left or to the right. This type of composition is what Edgar Payne calls the steel yard. Basically what it is a bar resting on a fulcrum. It's sort of what we think of as a teeter-totter, except you have one side that's real heavy, one side that's real light. And so you put the fulcrum toward the heavy side so the light side will have more leverage. And so it creates a real nice balance. Most of the time you want your center of interest where the fulcrum is. In other words, the point of balance. You see this a lot in landscape. The last compositional element is called the tunnel. This is real common in architecture because you see so many of these areas that these architectural lines lead to an opening, a doorway, a window. So this is most common in architectural paintings, interiors, etc. But you often see it in landscape painting also, because this same scenario can happen with trees around the outside of the canvas, leading to a light opening, which would be considered a tunnel. So when you're out in nature or preparing a painting in your studio, try to create one of these compositional elements in your painting. Try to find these compositional elements in scenes that you see. Your paintings will be much stronger if you'll always try to pick at least one of these elements for your composition. Remember, you can always refer back to this video for information about these different compositional elements. And of course, this is not all of the compositional elements that an artist can use, but this grouping will give you plenty of options.